Today we're going to be discussing the complex legacy of the Black Panther and their contribution to the community, their controversies, and what they did.
So join us today as this is the second part as we dive into the legacy of the Black Panthers. Whether you see the positive side or the negative side, that's up to you. What side do you see? Join us coming up next.
Joining us for Black History Month is our friend and special guest.
We'd like to introduce to you Agent Brooks.
Thank you, Agents Owens and Wells. I'm glad to be joining you in Studio 7.0 to discuss these true crime events during Black History Month.
Tell us, Agent Brooks, what's the case we will be covering today?
Today we are continuing with part 2 of our discussion about the controversial organization called the Black Panthers.
Welcome back, everybody. And today we just want to let you know this is for entertainment purposes only. Do your own research. But before we get into it, do you know that we have a new show called
The Jump Scare.
And if you like scary stuff, you're going to want to check this out if you want to know what it's all about. We have a quick little promo video for you, and we'll be right back. Join us at The Jump Scare, where we watch and react to scary and strange videos. But there's a twist. As you watch, we throw in our own jump scare videos to keep you on your toes. Do you have nerves of steel? Prove it by taking our challenge for some added fun. Watch with a full mug of water, preferably with our logo on it, and see if you can stay steady and dry. Please be safe by keeping the water at room temperature and holding the cup away from anything that can be ruined, like electronics. Let us know if you kept your cool or ended up all washed up.
Funny.
We are back. So
Welcome.
Today we're going to watch a video. So it gives us the background information, and then our Crime Force team is going to join in because there's some questions that came up that we captured. We want to ask them to dive a little bit deeper. So we want to give the video credit today to AJ+, okay? So I'm not really overly familiar with this channel, but please go over there and subscribe. They look like they got a lot of great videos, a lot of information, global news, really cool. Check them out. So without further ado, we are going to get into the video, and we'll comment and as we go along and have something for you at the end. So let's see what they have here.
Guns, berets, and leather jackets may be the images you associate most with the Black Panther Party. But what you may not know is how the political group shifted healthcare in the U.S. to be more community-based.
Our government was not going to provide health care, so we were going to provide health care for the people.
The Black Panthers opened free medical facilities, created the very first nationwide screening program for sickle cell anemia, a blood disorder, and they even helped establish a form of acupuncture that's still in use today.
We spent a lot more time serving the people than we did protesting or defending ourselves from the police.
So why isn't the Black Panthers' healthcare activism more widely known? Well, it may be by design.
History is written by the victors. The Black Panthers are not writing the history of the Black Panther Party.
Hey fam, I'm Imayan, and this Sunday
That's
on
a great
AJ+,
point.
we're exploring the Black
is.
Panther Party's history, healthcare legacy, and how a covert government program tried to bury it all.
Unbelievable. That's just crazy.
That's in life. That's in schools too. You see that all the time.
To understand what prompted the Black Panthers' foray into healthcare, you first have to understand why it came into existence. Here's how co-founder Huey P. Newton explained the group.
We are bound to transform society and erect a system where people will receive justice.
The Panthers formed on the heels of the Civil Rights Movement, a time when the push for racial equality and equity divided the U.S. 1965 was a pivotal year that helped spark the Panthers' creation, according to former Black Panther Billy Jennings.
You had the murder of Malcolm X in February. Also, you had the signing of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and also you had the Watts riot that happened in August of 1965,
there's a lot going
along
on.
with the Selma March in 1965.
Then, in the fall of 1966, a white police officer ran down and killed an unarmed teenager in a historically Black neighborhood in San Francisco. It was a breaking point. The community rioted.
Yeah, how many
the governor
people know
declared a
about
state of
that
emergency,
situation
and
today?
the next day,
Exactly.
National Guard soldiers marched with bayonets through the streets. This was the fertile ground in America's landscape that prompted Newton and Bobby Seale to found the Black Panthers Party for Self-Defense in October 1966. The Black Panthers' initial mission was to police the police. Panthers followed patrol vehicles ready to defend their communities with force if they felt the need arose. This is the part of their legacy that the world remembers. But the physical self-defense was a fraction of the Panthers' objectives. As their movement grew, so did their
She
vision.
hit the nail on the head.
Dr. Tolbert Small was a physician to the Black Panthers, though he wasn't a party member.
They were not just people in black jackets carrying guns. They were interested in actually doing something for the community.
The Black Panthers focused more on what they call survival programs, things like food assistance, free education, free legal aid. And one of their top priorities was free community health care.
Most of our civilized countries will provide these services for the people. The Panthers realized that we didn't have a civilized country. We were not providing these services for the people.
As a young doctor, Small treated political activists like Angela Davis and George Jackson in prison. And when Bobby Seale issued a directive for all chapters to establish free health clinics in 1970, the Black Panther Party turned to Dr. Small to help build the program.
I had all the pharmaceutical companies donating medicines to the George Jackson Free Clinic.
That was
I had
nice.
doctors volunteering, nurses volunteering, med techs volunteering.
Sheba Haven, who was a member of the Black Panther Party, says the Black Panthers' approach to healthcare was radical.
I think that they had a great impact on medicine in general because they were progressive, not just in the idea that healthcare is a right, but in the way that healthcare is delivered.
The Black Panther Party interceded in places where the U.S. government was seemingly absent, like its nationwide screening program for sickle cell disease. It was a first.
The government was not prioritizing sickle cell anemia.
Exactly.
For the same reason
Majority
that
of the African
Jackie
Americans.
Robinson had to be the first black baseball player in 1948. For the same reason that the black troops were segregated during World War II. There was racism in this country. Sickle cell anemia was a disease that affected mostly black folks.
Sickle cell is the single most common genetic disease in the United States, and the vast majority of patients are African American. It's painful and deadly. And in 1970, the country only allocated less than $100,000
And that's still nothing for
$7.8 million on muscular dystrophy, $1.6 million on cystic fibrosis, $8 million to get a man on the moon. And obviously, sickle cell anemia was not a priority.
It's crazy. It's so ridiculous.
An intriguing thing happened in 1972. John Lennon invited Black Panther members and collaborators to appear on one of the most popular talk shows of the day, The Mike Douglas Show. And they seized the platform to address the problem of sickle cell disease.
We've tested 30,000 people in sickle cell anemia. I think we've tested more than anybody in the country.
And just like that, sickle cell became part of the national conversation.
I didn't know
that. The Panthers used their medical infrastructure to run tests for sickle cell in cities all over the country. So it is objectively true that one of the defining public health initiatives of the early 1970s wasn't launched by the U.S. government, but by an organized group of socialist advocates. The initiative gained so much momentum that President Nixon signed legislation to aid research on finding a cure for the disease. By this point, the Black Panthers had become a major cultural force operating on the international stage. Their philosophy shared common ground with Maoists in China. And as China began to normalize relations with the U.S., they invited Huey P. Newton to visit months before receiving President Nixon.
That's awesome.
And that
Like,
visit was a major reason why acupuncture entered the American mainstream.
Acupuncture existed in the Chinese community already.
See, that's
but the Chinese community in America was more insular and more like an enclave.
That's probably what I need to do for my face.
We introduced it to the rest of the world.
The year after Newton visited China, he sent a delegation of 19 people to the country, including Dr. Small.
When they came back from 1972, we started talking about acupuncture more. And we had people practicing acupuncture on both coasts.
The Black Panthers also helped run the first health clinic to implement 5-point ear acupuncture. That protocol is still used today to treat conditions like drug addiction and post-traumatic stress. So the group had a major influence on healthcare initiatives in the US. Why then does it seem like that narrative has been hidden? Why are the Panthers so often associated with this?
It's associated with violence. Exactly.
It's partly because of controversial FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover and a little program you may have heard of before, COINTELPRO.
We mentioned
one of the things that J. Hoover always talked about was black people being unified, a messiah coming to unify black people, which he was terrified of because he was a racist.
COINTELPRO, or Counterintelligence Program, was a propaganda and surveillance operation that the FBI used to target activists, political groups, and minorities.
COINTELPRO was basically designed to destroy members of the movement that they felt was a threat to the American government, the American way of life.
COINTELPRO's goal was to discredit leaders and divide movements, or as the FBI put it at the time, to pinpoint potential troublemakers and neutralize them.
The power structure did not want to show the survival programs of the Panthers. They wanted to paint them as people who were committing crimes and violence.
It shows you what one
Of the 290 operations carried out by COINTELPRO, the Panthers were targets of 245. For those of you that enjoy math, that's more than 84%. Hoover personally instructed 14 different FBI field offices to submit imaginative and hard-hitting counterintelligence measures aimed at crippling the Panthers. They sent death threats, offensive cartoons, and forged letters to different members in an attempt to disrupt and divide the group. Perhaps the most insidious part about COINTELPRO was how effective it was in controlling the narrative around the party.
What the FBI and the government wanted to push, that the Black Panther Party was a black and angry group and they were anti-white.
So if you want to paint someone as a devil, you're not going to paint them as providing health care, providing free food, taking care of elderly people in the hospital, providing a free ambulance service like we did in North Carolina.
And in a way, it worked.
Yeah.
Years of police raids, misinformation, incarceration, and killings not only reduced membership, it left the organization financially crippled and ultimately unable to carry out its social programs. The Black Panther Party was officially disbanded in 1982. Today, many of the same structural inequities that the Black Panthers fought against continue, including access to health care. That's resulted in some devastating statistics for African Americans. In 2017, the American Heart Association said that African Americans have the worst cardiovascular health and more deaths from heart disease than any other group. They also have higher rates of HIV, diabetes, and chronic kidney disease. A 2007 study shows that African Americans are much less likely to trust physicians and the overall healthcare system.
You'll see that the statistics for black folks is vastly inferior to the statistics for white folks. And the Panthers recognize that there's racism in healthcare, and which is why they got involved in trying to provide healthcare.
A lot of times there wasn't healthcare at all.
But the Black Panther Party's legacy lives on. Many Panthers and volunteers with the party have gone on to work long careers in public health and medicine. Even the New York Health Commissioner, Mary Bassett, spent her early career volunteering in the Black Panthers Free Clinic.
The legacy of the Black Panther Party will never be forgotten because those things are embedded within people's families.
Shortly before he was killed by police in 1969, Black Panther Fred Hampton said this:
"That you can jail revolutionaries, but you can't jail a revolution." Right.
And that revolution always included a demand for healthcare as a basic human right. Hey fam, thanks so much for watching.
Yes,
don't forget to like,
please go like and subscribe, because we can't do this without other creators providing some background information. Because we said, geez, instead of recreating all this stuff, we want to help with promoting other folks out there. So we are going to see what our Crime Force group has to say. She did an awesome job. So go again, subscribe, and let's see what we have for the questions. Okay, well, a question came up. What were some of the criminal activities some of the Black Panther members were involved with? So, as mentioned, we heard a lot about all the positive, all the things they've done. I learned some stuff about worldwide. I didn't know that.
Exactly.
But when people call out, well, what were some of the criminal stuff? I think it dealt more with the some individuals as opposed to the group. But let's see what the Crime Force team has to say here.
The Black Panther Party, BPP, was not a criminal organization, but some of its members were involved in criminal activities and faced legal charges. The most notable incident was the murder of Alex Rackley, a 19-year-old BPP member, in New Haven, Connecticut in 1969. Key points regarding this case. Rackley was suspected of being an FBI informant by fellow Panthers. On May 18, 1969, Rackley was forcibly brought to the New Haven Black Panther headquarters at 365 Orchard Street. Torture. For 2 days, Rackley was subjected to severe torture, including being tied to a bed, having boiling water poured over his torso, shoulders, and thighs.
That was a
Being
crime.
beaten around
He was
his
the one
face,
that was-
groin, and lumbar region. The Panthers conducted a tape-recorded kangaroo trial where Rackley was interrogated about alleged spying activities. Under duress, Rackley eventually confessed to the accusations, though the veracity of this confession has never been confirmed.
Yeah, exactly.
Execution, on May 20th, 1969, Rackley was taken to Middlefield, Connecticut, where he was shot and killed by
Our
Warren
hometown.
Kimbrough and Lonnie
I know.
McLucas, allegedly on orders from George Sams Jr. Tragically, it was later understood that there was no evidence or reason to believe Alex Rackley had actually been an FBI informant. The incident led to a series of high-profile trials known as the New Haven Black Panther trials, which became a rallying point for the American left and marked a decline in public support for the Black Panther Party. This led to a series of criminal prosecutions against various BPP members and associates in New Haven from 1969 to 1971. Charges ranged from criminal conspiracy to first-degree murder. Bobby Seale, BPP co-founder, and Erica Huggins, head of the New Haven chapter, were charged with conspiracy to kidnap and murder Rackley, though neither was present during the crime. It's important to note that while some BPP members engaged in criminal activities, the organization as a whole was primarily focused on community organizing, advocacy, and social programs. The BPP faced significant government opposition, including FBI surveillance and sabotage through the COINTELPRO program. The public and media response to the torture and murder of Alex Rackley by members of the Black Panther Party, BPP, was significant and multifaceted, reflecting the complex social and political climate of the time. The murder and subsequent trials drew national attention, becoming a rallying point for the American left. The case highlighted issues of racial injustice, police infiltration, and the broader struggle for civil rights. The trials sparked widespread protests, including a major demonstration on May Day 1970 in New Haven, which saw around 15,000 Panther supporters gather to protest the trial. Yale University opened its gates to accommodate the protesters, and many students joined in solidarity. While the case galvanized support from some quarters, it also led to a decline in public support for the BPP, even within the Black community. The violent nature of Rackley's murder and the involvement of BPP members contributed to this shift in perception.
So before we get into this next question, so long story short, my dad was in the National Guard around that time, and
70s.
Early 70s, late 60s. Yeah, it must be early 70s, late 60s. Yeah. And he was slated, his unit, to go to Vietnam. But, and in that time, the National Guard, I don't know if they still do it today, but you go as a group. So they were going to go. But they were called down to the Bobby Seale trials down in New Haven. So even that was, you know, and he didn't have to draw his gun or anything. I think they just went down there for additional security. But the long story short is, even though that was a very negative thing, it wound up being a positive thing for my dad, because otherwise he would be in Vietnam and who knows what would have happened. So
Yeah,
just a little personal story there.
That was interesting. Yeah.
What was the public perception and media coverage like at that time? Great question. Let's see what they have to say.
The media coverage often sensationalized the events, focusing on the violent aspects of Rackley's murder and the internal conflicts within the BPP. This portrayal contributed to a narrative that painted the Panthers as a radical and dangerous organization. The trials were covered extensively by the media, with courtroom sketches and reports highlighting the legal proceedings.
And
the charges against high-profile figures like Bobby Seale and Erica Huggins added to the media's interest. The case was framed within the context of broader political struggles, including FBI efforts to dismantle radical groups through COINTELPRO. This program aimed to discredit and disrupt organizations like the BPP, influencing public perception through planted disinformation. The trial of Bobby Seale and Erica Huggins ended in a mistrial after a jury deadlock, partly due to questions about whether Black revolutionaries could receive a fair trial in America.
Exactly.
This outcome further fueled debates about racial justice and legal fairness. The legal challenges faced by key BPP leaders during these trials were seen by many as part of a broader strategy to weaken and dismantle the party's leadership structure. Overall, the murder of Alex Rackley and its aftermath had profound implications for public perceptions of the Black Panther Party, highlighting both internal challenges within the organization and external pressures from law enforcement and media narratives. There's no explicit mention of prominent figures or organizations directly condemning the torture and murder of Alex Rackley. However, the case did provoke significant reactions. Yale University President Kingman Brewster Jr. made a controversial statement expressing skepticism about the ability of black revolutionaries to receive a fair trial in the U.S., which indirectly criticized the handling of the case.
What they seen.
Yale chaplain William Sloane Coffin criticized law enforcement agencies for their actions against the Panthers and society for its immoral silence regarding these acts. The case became a rallying point for the American left, with protests and demonstrations organized in support of the accused Panthers. On May Day 1970, around 15,000 Panther supporters gathered in New Haven to protest the trial, with Yale University opening its gates to accommodate the protesters.
Nice.
While these reactions primarily focused on the subsequent trials and broader issues of racial justice, they indirectly addressed the circumstances surrounding Rackley's death. The lack of explicit condemnation of the murder itself in the search results may reflect the complex political climate of the time and the focus on the larger implications of the case.
There's a lot going on at the time between Vietnam, man.
Yeah.
And you know, going to the moon, Vietnam, all this stuff. There's a lot going on in the United States back then.
Exactly. Yeah. So what are the main social, political, and economic factors that often led to riots?
Yep, because they mentioned these political riots / marches, and let's see.
The term Black Panther riots isn't commonly used, but it might refer to the various confrontations and clashes involving the Black Panther Party during the late 1960s and early 1970s. The Black Panther Party, founded in 1966 by Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale, was involved in numerous incidents that were often labeled as riots or violent confrontations by the 1968 Democratic National Convention. Bobby Seale, a co-founder of the Black Panther Party, was one of the defendants in the trial related to the riots that erupted during the convention in Chicago. The Black Panther Party members were involved in several fatal shootouts with police. For example, in 1967, Huey Newton allegedly killed Officer John Fry, and in 1968, Eldridge Cleaver led an ambush on Oakland police officers. The FBI's counterintelligence program, COINTELPRO, targeted the Black Panther Party, leading to increased tensions and violent encounters. The FBI's actions included surveillance, infiltration, and harassment, which escalated conflicts. The Black Panther Party member who was allegedly involved in the killing of a police officer was Fred Hampton. However, Hampton was not directly involved in killing a cop. Rather, he became a target of a notorious police raid that led to his death. Fred Hampton was a prominent leader of the Chicago chapter of the Black Panther Party. He was killed during a police raid on his apartment on December 4th, 1969.
He was young with a wife and a kid.
Which was carried out by the Chicago Police Department and the FBI's COINTELPRO counterintelligence program was part of an effort to undermine the Black Panther Party. Hampton, who was just 21 years old, was shot and killed while he was asleep in his bed, and the raid was later determined to be a badly executed and illegal operation. The police claimed they were responding to a shootout, but evidence suggested that Hampton was drugged and unconscious at the time of the raid, and he did not fire any shots. The killing of Fred Hampton was one of the most infamous events in the history of COINTELPRO, which sought to disrupt and discredit black activist groups like the Black Panther Party. In the aftermath, there were widespread accusations of police misconduct, and many believed that the raid was a targeted assassination rather than a legitimate law enforcement operation. The FBI and police officers involved in the raid were never held accountable for Hampton's death. Fred Hampton's legacy remains a powerful symbol of resistance to police brutality and government surveillance.
Wow, that was great. I love the way the Crime Force, these questions come up so we capture them. And then, you know, I love the way these guys answer these questions because it overlaps with some of the information in the videos, but they go a little bit deeper and I always learn some more information. So thank you guys so much. Woohoo! Yay! All right, that's how I hit it. Well, I thank Agent Brooks there in the middle for joining the team this time around for Black History Month. So that's really cool. So, all right, Now I'm going to pause because before you just took off with all the comments. So I'll turn it over to you for some of the final comments as we finish up this part 2 series.
Yes, just wanted to say this is just a small capture of the Black Panther Party. There's definitely a lot of more information out there. And I know a lot of people, and this is something I had to realize myself, we all programmed to think certain ways, but sometimes you need to think outside the box and also be mindful. Everything you see in social media, government, don't take it as fact and that's the right way, because it's not sometimes. You really got to do your own research. And that's one thing we learned is of course they didn't teach this in school because they probably say, something is going to happen and everybody. So they pick and choose what they teach us. So you got to go above and beyond and teach yourself.
Right. And to just echo what Chirac just mentioned, think about this. This was the late 60s, early 70s. And those programs to put out all of the fake information, fake news, all that stuff back then and be successful. Now that was 54 years ago plus, okay? Now with the technology and everything that has gone so quickly over the years, just think of how we as U.S. citizens get manipulated.
Exactly. Even when we doing this AI stuff, sometimes we do gather research, but I always say, this is not accurate. And I always got to question the mind of, just because something is AI, it doesn't mean it's true either.
No.
That's why we always have that entertainment purposes. Please do your own research and go above and beyond. Listen, you don't have to listen to me. You do your own research and just don't go by what the media say or even what AI say. You have to know, you got to go deeper than that. And sometimes these news articles are still falsified information. We can get your best resource from the person themselves. So if you can go and say, I would like to have an interview with that person is going to tell you the truth, most likely. I think it's an 85, 80, 90% chance, instead of sometimes what they write. The journalists, all of that, they write because they want things to be curved in a certain type of way.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why we use multiple AI tools, because we try to do some checks and balances, and the crime force uses different tools.
Yes.
But even with that, and to what you're saying, Shrak, that's why even, I'm politically independent, and a lot of times I have to listen to multiple sources. But like I've told Shrak in the past, a lot of times I don't trust any news source. I can't always do it, but if there's an important speech or something like that, I try to listen to it live so I can hear. And of course that could be edited too, with technology, but for the most part I try to go to the raw, like you said, Shrak, the raw source, and try to get it from there or do research on there. It's just very hard because in this day world when everybody's addicted to their phones and the young people. So,
And I also want to also give, when I read the book, The New Jim Crow, I just wanted to definitely make sure that's in here too. These lawyers and African American, they seen it with their own eyes of what was going on in the justice system.
Good, excellent segue. You can't make this up. I swear to you, we did not practice this.
We did not.
Next week, you're going to want to check this out for our last episode for Black History Month. It's the kissing case. And in there, Shrak, the crime force team is going to define or go over what the Jim Crow law is. Because a lot of people, they hear it in a political thing. Oh, the Jim Crow law. But nobody, okay, what is it? And they're like, well, I think it's just some prejudice thing. Oh, what is it? They don't know. We're gonna get that
nice.
Time. Yeah.
So stay tuned and watch.
So stay tuned.
We got some good stuff for you guys.
Yeah. So please, if you made it this far, please subscribe. That means a lot to us. Share. Check out the jump scare too if you like the scary stuff as we mentioned.
And tell us what you think about the AI. This is something we like to also have comments on.
Yeah. The crime force team. They do a great job digging in a little deeper and presenting the info. And I think it's pretty cool. But anyhow, last comments, Shrak, before we close it out.
Stay tuned. I want to say thank you for watching Studio 7-0.
All right, out of here.